to get to your main pulley, you're gonna have to pull off the fixed nose. You want to put your hand behind it. There's going to be a nut on these two bottom ones. You just don't want to drop the nut onto the ground and lose it. Pull that off, and then you got 4 more. Now when you go to loosen the last one, you want to grab a hold of the bottom of the plate, because it's going to come right off. And just set the plate up out of the way. Now you got to get off this the small plate. This is a 3/32, and break those loose. You're going to want to make sure that your Allen wrench is set all the way in there so you don't round it out. And once you get them all broke loose, you can just take them off. I keep pressure on it so it doesn't fall and clang around. And just set that off to the side. And that exposes the bottom of the motor pulley and then the main drive pulley. Now if you're slipping or if it's making noise, you're going to want to disconnect the belt. There's a little bolt right on top of the motor. If I can, I believe it's a 964. It'll be silver. Get your Allen in there, loosen that up. Usually give it 2 good turns. Sometimes a little more. You want this to be able to move freely. You want to collapse it all the way in so that you got slack in your belt. You just slide the belt off. And that slides off like that. And once you get that, you want to make sure that it doesn't have any sharp edges or anything like that. And you're going to want to grab a 3mm Allen wrench and a pair of Channellocks, because that pulley will move. So what you do, just hold that. You have a tighten side and a loosen side. You're going to want to pull the set screw out of the tighten side, so reverse it out. Once you get it broke loose, you don't really need your Channellocks to hold that pulley until you get to where you're tightening it in the other way. So you back this little set screw out, and then you're going to want to move it over to the loosen side. And you just thread it in, and once it gets so tight, you're going to need to use your Channellocks again. I usually try and put it up towards the top wherever I'm tightening. Then you just want to drive that set screw in. You're going to feel a lot of resistance. You're just going to keep going until it gets loose. Once it feels loose as you're driving it in, this will just slide right out. Get it slid out. First thing I always do is take it out of the loosen side and put it back into the tighten side. That way you don't have to fumble with it later. Grab a hold of it, put it back in. You're going to want to disconnect your motor. I use a pair of needle nose. Grab a hold of the plastic, not the wire, lift up. Then you're going to take a 10mm There's 2 little castle nuts. Loosen those up. Remove the one castle nut, then you do the same on the other side. You usually got to move the motor back. Try not to drop the castle nuts because they're hard to get to. You also got to unplug your motor wire for the brake. Just set that up out of the way. And once you get that done, there's 4 bolts on either side that need to come out. I use an extension so that the wheels don't get in the way. You just take it, wiggle it down. Pull it off. And you're going to remove this bolt and this bolt. Comes right off. Set it right back in. Tighten that one down. You can tighten this one all the way. Leave this one loose so that it moves back and forth. Then when you go to put it back on, make sure your wires are up. You want to try and line everything up. Grab a hold of that screw and you just try and line everything up with the screw going through the hole. Make sure you keep pressure on that screw so that it doesn't go up into the top of the cart. And just give it a little tap back and forth till it's in. Got that all lined up. Got that set in. And you can go through and put your bolts back in. I always start them by hand. That way I don't run the risk of stripping them out. Once you get it started, always try and start one side on each. That way I know it's lined up and not going to be crooked. Drive them back in. Grab a hold of that, make sure it's all the way down so it's closest to you. And then you take your finger and you can put it up onto the screw to hold it, so when you push this back on, you can help use the carriage to hold it all the way in there too. You're going to want to push that all the way up because as you tighten it, it's going to draw it back down. So, just tighten it up a little bit. Once you get to a certain point, you're going to have to use your channel locks again. Don't pull on it outwards because you want it to stay resting up top. And just tighten it until you cannot tighten it anymore. You want this as tight as possible. So when you can't tighten it anymore, it's tight. By that time it'll give you just enough slack so that it's not touching on the top too. And then you just do all your steps in reverse, putting the belt back on. Make sure it all lines up. Then you're going to want to take, there's a nut on the back side. Just use it as a pry bar against the base of the motor with your 9/64. Basically you want to go halfway. To split that bolt in between the slot halfway is about the perfect tension. Once you get a little bit of pressure on there, you can let that go. Give her a good snug up. And take your belt and press on it. You just want a little bit of flex in there. You gotta put your castle nuts back in. And try not to drop them in the pan because they're kind of hard to fish back out. Use your 10mm again to tighten them back up. When you're tightening these up, you just want to get them snug. If you tighten them too hard, you're going to spin. There's a little bolt. The bolt you're tightening against is just pressured in there. So you don't want to knock that loose. You just want to have them snug, not overly tight. You're all set, then you can go ahead and put your plate back on. Make sure the tapered is out because this will fit backwards and then your bolts or screws will stick out. So you want to make sure the taper is that way. You set it on, fits right back in. Let's get at least one going. To hold it. Again, you don't want to tighten that all the way until you get all the little ones in lined up. You just want them snug, and that's your motor replacement. All you got to do after that is plug in your brake again. And then plug the motor wires back in. Positive to positive, negative to negative. Now you're ready to plug your battery back in and make sure everything works.